Hello, folks. You are watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media. All of our channels and networks, things haven't changed. I'm still Mike Morales here in Southern California. That gentleman out there is.
I'm still Bryce Taylor in Austin, Texas.
Oh, yeah. Nothing has changed, folks. Bryce, today you and I have a really interesting tequila because it's so new. It's so new. It comes out of Houston. And first things, when I found these people, and I found out that they were based in Houston, I said, we got to get them to Bryce. And they were so nice to get this out to us here in California. And then I don't know, Bryce, have you ever seen this tequila out in the wild yet?
No, not yet. I'm showing, it looks like they got a contract with Total Wine, Austin, Houston, and Dallas is what I could tell.
Okay.
So should be.
Well, it's interesting. They say sample, not for sale. So that's how new they are, folks. These are samples that we've requested.
So I know they're in stores now, but yeah, we just got these. So I think they're just rolling out, just pushing out.
Anyway, I'm going to pour mine in a Stossel that I normally use for mezcal. It's got a little bit wider mouth surface.
There we go.
Oh, nice. How do you get it to pop like that every single time? You just get the champagne cork.
Yeah, well, so you got to make sure it's flat and on a solid surface, and then just straight up.
Oh, so there's a trick to it. Oh, see,
yeah.
What he's telling me, folks, is it's all in the wrist. Okay,
it's partially true. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's I know that the labeling is kind of like white and green. I mean, it's pretty much a bare bones label. This is a stock bottle. I have seen this bottle before in other brands, but it's not hiding anything. I mean, it's pretty much the same color that you see in the bottle is what you get in the glass.
Yeah, and the glass isn't tinted. The paper feels like good cardstock or something, like quality paper.
Yeah. It almost feels like agave paper. It's very textured.
Yeah, it is a little fibrous. Yeah.
Now, the name of the brand, by the way, you haven't mentioned it yet, but we should. It's Kateri.
Yeah.
Kateri. I don't know what that stands for, but it's got K's all over the place. I mean, if you look at the label, if you look at it, it's got a K all the way through. Yep, K all the way through. See that? Yeah. So it may stand for something. I'm not exactly sure. As we go through it, we'll try to give you a bit more of the ins and outs of who owns it.
Yeah, I even threw it in a translator, and there was like a Slovenian term, but it didn't make sense to me, so I don't think that's it.
It could be. It could be, and I'll explain why as we go through this. But I poured mine, like I say, in the Stossel. It's a pretty color. I mean, it's a nice pale gold. It's almost like a straw color.
Yeah. I'd just go, straw.
Yeah.
Really light gold.
And it's luminescent though. It's shiny.
Yeah.
And I did get bubbles. I always shake the bottle to make sure I get some bubbles. Oh, nice little string of pearls. Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty.
It is clinging well.
Yeah.
It makes me think it's going to be viscous, which I like. Oily, viscous. Now it is a reposado, and it is their first tequila, so they're coming out, straight out of the box with a repo.
Well, and that's really traditional when you think about it, because in the old days, and I kid Bryce, I'm probably older than Bryce, I'm sure I am. But in the old days, when brands would come to the United States, like Cazadores, Cabrito, Centinela, a lot of them came across to the US as reposados, not blancos and not añejos to begin with.
So just because of the time it took to transport, and they were transporting in barrels, or was it intentional?
No, just I don't know. I think because the market isn't as advanced now then as it is now. There was no studies. There was no, the people making Cazadores now aren't the same family. Okay, it's owned by Bacardi, but in the original versions, which I have been fortunate enough to have had and paid nothing for, they came across as reposados.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, a lot of people in my position would say it's hard to do a reposado right because you can mess it up in so many different ways, right? Am I right?
It's a tight window, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love a well-made reposado, but there's few of them.
Yeah, some of them, are leaning toward too much perfume, too many additives. Some of them not enough. They don't, but now they're doing stuff to blancos and repos that nobody was thinking of doing back then.
Yeah.
If you had a in those days when Cazadores came across the border, they were using 8 to 10-year-old agave for sure, because they were agave growers. The original owners were agave growers.
Yeah,
and
there wasn't a huge demand, so they were there.
Yeah, they were there, and people were not used to that really aggressive agave flavor of a blanco, so they would rest it in a barrel just enough to literally smooth out the edges.
Well, and I'm sure Americans were probably used to brown spirits.
Well, the history of the reposado was that it was invented by one of the matriarch of the Romo family that owned Herradura. It was her idea to rest in Jack Daniel's barrels as a reposado because they're originally from Amatitan, which is very, that region. I love that region because it's the kind of tequila that grabs you by the
birthplace.
Yeah, and it's got that nice minerality and earth. It's kind of in between the highlands and the lowlands and the valley, and the water has a lot to do with it. So they would rest it in a Jack Daniel's barrels because it would acquire the flavors of a Jack Daniel's, and then of course attract the whiskey audience, and that's how the reposado was invented. So when that happened, everybody followed suit, and when they all started coming across the border, they saw how great Herradura was doing. So naturally, Cazadores and everybody else started doing the same thing, right? Oh, that's nice! Wow.
And so what I'm reading is 3 to 9 months. So we don't know exactly how long they age their repo. That's pretty much the gamut, that 2 to 12. So they're saying 3 to 9. So I don't know if they're blending or.
Well, judging from the color, let's just give it a 6 because we can dance.
I agree. Yeah. If I guess,
and it's okay because I'm really getting some wonderful nose notes. I'm getting barrel notes and agave notes on this one.
Yep.
Oh, that's just nice. Wow. It's such a delight to smell something natural.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you folks haven't been following us, and you won't know what we're talking about, but Bryce and I know. It's an inside joke, but you'll get it.
Yeah, so I do get the agave. I think it slightly hides under the barrel notes.
Yeah. On my left side, I get more barrel notes toward the bottom of the glass. And but originally my first whiff was plant. I got some bright plant notes on it, not necessarily green, maybe baked. I got more baked than green.
Baked vegetal.
Yeah.
And also not just barrel notes, but I'd say barrel room. You've been obviously in
room. Yep.
That dry wood
where that the angels are getting more than their share.
Yeah, exactly.
Have I ever told you that story? I should tell you that story. My first trip to tequila was done. I tell this story a few times, but I was a member of the Blue Agave Forum when it first started. And it was one of those, we kind of migrated from email lists. This was long before forums.
Oh yeah, I remember.
You had the email list, and then you migrated to the forum, which was all handled by Ian Chadwick, who was a Canadian. And unbeknownst to me, up until we met, he had never been to a distillery, but he had the most informative website on tequila and its processes on the web. Okay, in those days. So there was a group of 35 of us who were members of this forum, and somebody decided to put together a tour before tours were ever done. and that's where we met. It was the biggest blind date I've ever been on. And anyway, my first smell of that, you brought that. I bring this up because it's a great memory for me.
Yeah.
We had a tour at Jose Cuervo, but before that happened, we were a bunch of us. We just kind of branched out. There were several of us, and we just kind of grouped together. We went up the street to Arete, the small El Llano distillery, which is a small one. And I asked the guy, they weren't producing, they were cleaning out the autoclave. You know, they had like maybe 2 autoclaves. This place was really tiny. And I said to the guy, where do you rest your tequilas? And he goes, well, it's across the street. And so you walk on the cobblestone streets, and he opened it for me. And it was a warm day. I mean, it was like in the mid 80s, right? Yeah. He opens his door, and I get hit by this heat and the smell. And the first thing I said out of my mouth, I was such a newbie. I said, wow, añejo. That's what I said. Because so you bring that up, and it's exactly what this is. It really is. It's añejo in the old school. You know what I mean? It's rested in that dry. You know what climate control was for that warehouse? It was a brick warehouse. It was stacked to the rafters with barrels. And you know what their climate control was? They would wet down the cement. They would wet down the cement, and that's like a wet garage. If you guys ever washed out your garage and wet cement,
you're trying to add some humidity to,
yeah. So on a hot day, and the sun was hitting directly into that building. So it's a brick building with no insulation. I mean, it's just your barrels you're gonna lose over 10%.
I'm guessing it was probably roofed, but what had like the upper windows, like in the eaves or something?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, very common, architecture for tequila, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this is. You're exactly right. You just brought that whole memory to me. It's like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one.
No, I'm digging the nose, and there's a little sweetness.
Oh my goodness, this is such an old school. It really
is.
The
cooked agave that's giving me that sweetness, but
yeah. Well, it has to be mingling with the wood notes. You want to dive in? I know I've kind of monopolized.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready. Yeah.
Me too. Here we go. Wow, that's good, man. That's something. I know it's our first pass, and it's almost like you can tell Bryce. You're looking at Bryce. He's searching in his mind, because that's I look at people's eyes, because that's a lot really telling as to where they're trying to process and grab information from, because that's how the mind processes, if you didn't know that. And we're reaching back to some of the old school stuff that we haven't had in years in this style.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, if people read my reviews or something, like, I mean, I take a photo, and then you see my review, and people just think like, okay, cool, it's a photo and you wrote some stuff, but it's like, I probably drink 3-4 ounces while I write it, and take about an hour and a half. So like these are more difficult because I'm doing it on the fly live.
Yeah.
And that's why, and also for my attention span, I kind of look off because I take all distractions away. But so I'm getting a lot of the barrel, which makes me think maybe more than the 6 months, or it also depends on the barrel. We don't have a lot of info on that.
Yeah, we don't either.
Depending on like if it's new oak or.
Well, if it's used, if it's a whiskey barrel, then it has to be used, because that's just the law. But it could be like
it could be a rye. It could be a rye barrel, and maybe that's where we're getting the spice.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't think so, because rye has deeper flavors in it.
Yeah.
Generally, they're more grainy for me.
Yeah, they can go different directions, but
yeah, this has got more of the wood spice to it, because it's really peppery. You could tell that the Blanco that it started with had a lot of pepper because the Repo is really bringing out that hot cinnamon. I mean, it's hot.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way. It's not off-putting at all. It's just got character. You know, it's literally rounding out the edges. I can only imagine what the Blanco would have been like. Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm
God.
guessing the Blanco was punchy.
Yeah.
You know, but then with the Repo being in the barrel, you get those tannins, you kind of get some of the sugars, you know, whether it be from, you know, the bourbon or the, you know, the charred barrel itself.
And see, I'm getting whiskey notes is what I'm getting. I think to me, and because when I get bourbon, usually when it's a bourbon barrel, I get more of a, it's a longer finish, more of a little bit bitter on the tail end, and I'm not getting that. I'm getting a much more whiskey sweetness. So I'm going to lean toward the whiskey side. I don't know if you agree with me or not.
No,
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah. Yeah, it is tasty. You know, and like we're just saying, like repos are hard to do because of that tight window. I would definitely love to try the Blanco because, you know, to me, Blanco is tequila. It's its purest expression, you know, original category. But, you know, I could see that maybe they put it in barrels and then out of the two, they're like, hey, we think this might do us better if we start out with this, this Repo.
I give them kudos for coming into the market with a Repo, for doing it the right way. Because as far as if Bryce brought that memory out from me, and I thought I was the only one because I was so green in those days, and I had already had I was doing shows in those days. I was doing tequila shows in New Mexico before there were any shows ever across the U.S. Now that you can't, you know. Now you can't go a weekend without somebody throwing a show, right? Especially in Texas.
No.
And I thought, wow, this is an old school tequila.
Yeah, so it's Gnome 1439. They're in Amantitan. They're claiming to use 6 to 8 year old agaves, which is definitely a plus. That's pretty old for these days, or at least 8.
Yeah.
And Valley Tequila, autoclave, roller mill, well water, stainless steel fermentation, stainless steel pot stills, and then like we said, 3 to 9 months, which I'm guessing that's 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think it's a 6 and above probably would have been safer to say 6 and above. Are they blending it? I doubt it. I don't think so. You don't need to. If you're starting with a Blanco that's got this much character, just let it do its thing with the barrel, you know?
Yeah. And so they're another Total Wine in Texas. I'm showing like a $75 price point.
Which these days, probably not too far off. I'm just going to go there. I'm going to say Brand Promise nominee. That Reposado. Yeah, there you go. See, Bryce has a paddle too.
Yep. Don't leave home without it.
No, but you know, I'm so glad that you brought that memory up for me because I thought I was the only. Yeah, I'm going to join you. I thought I was the only one. Folks, I got to say, this is an old school tequila. If you guys are old dogs, even some of the newer generations of drinkers, and you're not sure, you know, you're wondering what the big deal is about old style tequila, and maybe you're sick and tired of the sweet stuff that's out there, the mainstream, the Don Julios and the Terramanas and whatever else, you know. If you want to know what really old school tequila was like in the old days, I think Kateri is a great example, because I don't usually do a lot of research when I get these, except for if they give us POS material, like they gave us a card. I can read some of that on the back, but usually a card doesn't give you a whole lot of information, or it's marketing fluff, as Bryce told me off camera. I called it something else because I write marketing fluff, and my fluff is good. So you do your own research, because don't rely on an app. Don't rely on the website. Don't rely, bottom line is rely on your taste buds. If that's the case and try a wide variety of tequilas. So you have a pretty good idea what a French Oaks does to a tequila and what a Repo does, and who does what to where. This is really an old school reposado.
Yeah, I'd say you get barrel spice, it's peppery, you're getting some sweetness from the agave. It's bold. I mean, I'd say it kind of verges on being bold.
Yeah, it really walks a fine line. And I think it's because, number one, it comes out of Amatitan. That area, if they grow their agaves like they should, those agaves, to me, it's one of my favorite flavor profiles of the plant. I know a lot of people like Highlands tequilas. They like it from that golden triangle, and I get that. I enjoy those too.
I do too, yeah.
If I had my druthers, if I were to choose between a Highlands and a Valley tequila, I always like to go for the Valley first, because like I'm like you, you want that flavor to grab you by the shirt collar and slap you around and go, I'm here. It's like, okay. Or maybe I'm just digressing. Anyway, just like, and that's an old barrel smell too.
Yeah.
That's
I'm digging the barrel, because normally like you'll be like, oh, a bunch of barrel spice, and then everyone's like, oh, it's over oaked. And I was like, no, it's just the spice is very present. It's not over oaked, because when you get too much tannins, you start getting that dark, like it really dries out your palate. It's not that at all. It
starts to overtake the tequila, and that's why we've said it throughout this whole review, is that it's tough to make a great reposado, because you run that fine line between too much barrel and not enough barrel.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to try the Blanco.
Yeah.
I want to try the Blanco. It's called Kateri. They are based in Houston. As far as I know, let's see, savor the smoothness of the artisanal 100% agave tequila reposado. Perfect for sipping. Our small batch tequila is crafted with 0 additives for a pure, authentic taste. Okay, I agree. It's a support local and give back with every sip. Our Houston-based company, along with Amatitan, Jalisco family-owned distillery, hires single mothers and is dedicated to making a difference in our community. Cheers to a better world, one drink at a time. Hecho con cariño en Mexico. So it's made with cariño is care, love, kindness. There's a word. I know there's a word I'm missing here, but anyway, it's very touching the way they mention this. Kateri, I will say that the owners of the place, the owners, I found out when I unpackaged my box and took out the labels, the owners have a jewelry store called Eclectic Jewelry Studio.
Okay.
And they're in Houston. So the last name I believe is Rosenthal. So you're probably right. Kateri might mean something in that language that you looked up. We don't know what it means because they're not telling us.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it might be on the website, because it's unique enough that you feel like they would want to explain it, but
I think they need to, because I think it's gonna have an identity of its own. There's a lot of again, brand of promise. I think there's a lot of promise with this brand. I would love to try the Blanco. I'm anxious to see where they're going to go with this brand and what they're going to do.
I still have it pulled up on my phone here when I put it in translate. So Kateri and Slovenian, like I said, I don't know if that's what this is.
Yeah,
it stands for which one. So, but sometimes when they just put this translate, it might mean which one, but then like to people that speak that, you're like, well, it's not just that, and then they can explain it a little bit better, like it's more encompassing, like you were talking about with the Carino. So maybe not, but Marco, let us know.
Yeah, please let us know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's our take. Unless you want to say something else, I would. You know what? and that for that price, for old school tequila, not bad.
Yeah, go grab it. Let us know what you think.
Yes. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a like, share it with other tequila aficionados.
Podcasts. You got it.
Yeah.
I think y'all are everywhere.
We're like a virus. We're everywhere. And so is Bryce. Tell everybody how to follow you. Where are you?
So Austin Tequila Connoisseurs, mainly on Instagram, but there's Facebook, and then whenever I do a video, I throw it up on YouTube. So
yeah, so he's got a small collection of YouTube videos, but you can get. But if you're not, you can catch him on our YouTube channel. Thankfully. But that's our take on Kateri. If you've had it, tell us what you're doing with it. I would not put this in a cocktail to begin with. I want to sip it first before I do anything with it myself. I don't know if Bryce would agree with me, but
not a bartender. I feel like it's flavorful enough that it could be used. I just don't know where. So, but ultimately, yes, it's a sipper, and I think a creative bartender can make a damn good drink.
Oh yeah. If you're a bartender who's looking for quality tequila to make a quality crafted cocktail, right here. Because I believe it still has the characteristics of the Blanco, which I'm dying to try. I want to try their Blanco. I do. Yeah. You know that you're making a really good tequila when you're going, God, I wonder what that Blanco tastes like. Now I want to know. And then you're wondering, in the future, are they resting barrels? What are they going to do with the, how old will the Añejo be?
Like, are we getting the Blanco next, or are we getting the Añejo next?
Yeah, exactly. How they want to come into the market. But again, this is an old school way of coming into the market with a Reposado. And if you've done it right, like these folks have done, I think there's a lot of promise there. So anyway, but like I say, that's our take. I'm Mike Morales here in Southern California. That guy out there is
Bryce Taylor in Austin, Texas.
You have been watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media. All of our channels and networks. Again, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, download the podcast wherever you listen to us. And whatever you do, Omar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.